Bit of breaking news regarding Everton and that 10-point deduction. Our chief football correspondent Alex Crook joins us. Alex, so good news effectively for Everton fans.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. As you say, very positive for Everton. I'm expecting a statement from both them and the Premier League shortly to confirm their 10-point deduction for breaching the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules has been reduced to 6 points. Of course, they were hit with 10 points initially. They felt the punishment was way over the top for only breaching those profit and sustainability rules by around about £20 million. They blamed it on interest payments relating to loans for the rebuild of their new stadium, which I have to say looks fantastic. And this is significant, not just for Everton, but of course for all the teams fighting against relegation. It puts them back onto 25 points. They'll move up to 15th in the Premier League table. So it's bad news for the likes of Luton. Sheffield United and Burnley are probably gone already. I'm getting more information on it all of the time. Just had a message to confirm that the independent appeal panel has decided to reduce the points deduction from 10 to 6. So as expected, the appeal board overturned the commission's finding that the club failed to act in utmost good faith, which along with reducing the points deduction was an incredibly important part of the principle of this appeal for the club. The appeal board took the view the 10-point sanction imposed by the commission was inappropriate when compared to the available benchmarks which the club had drawn to the commission's attention, including most notably the position under the relevant EFL regulations. Of course, there is still a second charge hanging over Everton for their latest set of accounts, so there's a possibility they could be hit with a further points deduction, but I think they'll be quite bullish after that appeal that maybe that won't happen now.
I wonder if that is the tariff now, 6. I wonder if that's what, other teams like Forest who've got that hanging over their heads, or will it be sort of fact specific? But if you are Forest and you're looking at that thinking, okay, we could lose 6 points, where does that that does put them in the bottom 3 currently. But I'm interested to know whether 6 is where it's at for similar charges.
Well, I think it'll be a case-by-case basis. Obviously, as I mentioned, Everton felt that their overspend wasn't that dramatic and that there were mitigating circumstances behind it. Obviously, Forest is a little bit more complicated. The main grounds for appeal they claim to have is that they could have sold Brennan Johnson much earlier in the transfer window. They could have taken a lower offer from Brentford of £30 million. They waited until right at the back end of the summer transfer window, sold him for £44 million, but that fell outside the accounting period, so therefore it put them in the red. So it'll be interesting to see if that one holds up. But I think it will be individual cases, but I think Everton will be quite pleased this lunchtime.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks very much.
Cheers out.
Cheers, guys.
Alex Crook there. And interested to hear from you, Evertonians. We'll get some reaction to that from Everton fans. But interested to hear from you this afternoon. What do you make of that? I think that was the expectation. The feeling was it would be reduced to 6, but let us know what you think. 03717223344, talksport.com, text to 81089, tweet to TSH and J. We will be covering Everton, their game against Brighton, in the next 40 odd minutes or so, because Danny Kelly joins us as always. Good afternoon, Danny.
Good afternoon, everybody. All good, yeah.
Hello, Danny.
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
How did you let Andy get away on the weekend of the League Cup final?
Yes, he's travelled quite a long way not to.
He's gone to another hemisphere, I understand. Yeah.
I wonder if it would have been Gary Neville getting the stick or the team. I don't know, but he's not fed back to me yet. He's gone very quiet.
He'd have been very balanced about it.
Yeah, he's quite a stoic character when it comes to football.
Paul and Perry, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but since you've been talking about Stan Bowles, I can add a story about Stan and what kind of bloke he was, right to the latter stages of his life, and I must get it out here. I don't want to be, you know how people say you mustn't speak ill of the dead. I'm not speaking ill of him. I loved Stan. I paid actual money to go and watch QPR when I was a teenager, so you could watch that one footballer. But much more recently, 7 or 8, maybe 9 years ago, I can't remember exactly, he was supposed to be on My Sporting Life, and myself and the producer went up to Manchester, knocked on the door where we'd been told who he was living. A voice from inside the door, clearly Stan Bowles, "You got the money?" "Sorry? Have you got the money?" And he wouldn't do the thing because he'd been promised X hundreds of pounds.
Right.
We thought this had all been sorted out, or that, he'd be invoices. He wouldn't do it unless he got cash. Off we trolled, Paul, to a cash point. I took out the money on my credit card, as I think I remember, and he said, "Put it through the door." So we put the money through the door.
Yeah.
He wouldn't open the door. We never did the interview. We just kept the money.
Oh, dear.
And we got back on a train and went back down to London. And Stanley got the money. And talkSPORT reimbursed me, as I recall. But, he just had the money. Thanks very much. I need that. He didn't do it.
Dan, I think he probably had people to see or places to go, which is more important.
I suspect I wasn't top of his list of priorities for the day, Perry, I'll be honest with you. But it was so funny when I put the money, and of course I didn't have an envelope, so I'm putting it in increments through the door, and I could hear him rustling it on the other side of the letterbox. Didn't open the door.
He probably had someone the other side of the door, probably at the back door, demanding money reminiscences. Because
who knows, Paul?
Quite possibly.
But if it almost anybody else, I'd have been inclined to shoulder charge the door.
Yeah.
In the style of a cop show. It's Stan Bowles. What did you expect, Danny? Come off it, man.
That make you love him even more.
Absolutely.
I've got a Stan Bowles story now.
Yeah,
absolutely. A working class hero is something to be, as the great man of me once said.
Let's get your thoughts on Everton. We'll come on to the game, but what do you make of that?
Really, really interesting, this, Paul, because the appeals committee will have to explain in very great detail why they have reduced it. And I say this because you say Nottingham Forest are also involved. But the elephant in the room is Manchester City, isn't it? They have been charged with far greater number and far wider breaches of the rules. And if they are found guilty, and they've not been found guilty, the punishments handed out to other clubs will be the benchmark by which they are judged. So these cases, as they come in, and there'll be more of them, I guess, over the next 18 months, they're important because it goes right to the top of English football. We're into new territory here, aren't we? Docking teams points for these offences. It's great news for Everton, obviously, and I don't know what the second round of charges, how it differs, and then maybe they'll find more points. We'll see. But look, you don't want to see clubs relegated because of off-field offences. On the other hand, you've got to defend the rules are there for everybody, or else they're not worth having, are they?
No.
And to be fair, it has a massive effect, isn't it, on the January transfer window? Because you look at Arsenal needed centre forward, and they think, no, FFP, we can't go and do it. Newcastle, it's clipped their wings. Yeah. So it is going to make it, in a roundabout way, more of a level playing field.
And also maybe a tension in the way Everton have been playing. We saw them, equaliser.
Yeah, they haven't won in 8 or 9
day.
now, have they?
Yeah, 9 I think it is. Yeah.
And maybe this will allow them to play with a little bit more. I mean, they're not completely out of it. They've got to, but you would imagine it could affect the way that they play their games. Maybe with a touch. I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin hasn't scored for 20 games.
Exactly.
Which is.
We can put a positive spin, which it is for Everton fans, and Sean Dyche, and say, actually, we're unbeaten in 2, so win and a draw, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. No, that is very true. I'm sure that's what he'll be doing.
Well, it's certainly the most points gained over one weekend ever by a Premier League club, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And as Alex was saying, it's going to be interesting to see what happens on these other charges against Everton and Forest, because they've got to be dealt with by the end of the season, I believe.
The problem there is timing, isn't it? We're already, what are we? We're almost in March now. What if they're dealing with these things in mid-April, and you get docked 6 points, you get docked 10 points, whatever it is, you've got no chance to recover whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's a double injustice. You're not being punished in the time frame in which the offences occurred, and also that's one way in which it's wrong. And then secondly, you're not getting a chance to recover from whatever punishment comes your way. No. It's a mess. I understand that they have to do the rules. They just need to. The problem is the clubs will. This has to be. You have these independent panels. Then you have an appeals procedure. This inevitably takes time, and time is the enemy of this kind of justice. The problem is if they don't go through these long-winded procedures, Paul and Perry, you know what will happen. This will end up in the courts, and then the season will be delayed, the start of the following season.
Do you think as well, though, Everton obviously admitted it, didn't they? And that was done a lot quicker than the other charges. So you think if it happens in future that clubs will be a little bit more ready to say, actually, yes, we have.
They never denied that they'd broken the rules. They were not. They felt the charge was draconian, and it seems like the appeal procedure agrees.
Well, both Forest and Everton's defence seems to be Spurs didn't give us the money in time.
Yes.
For both Richarlison and Brennan Johnson, isn't it? That seems to be the...
For Stan Bowles, read Daniel Levy. What did you expect? Thank you. All right, Danny, we'll get stuck into the Carabao Cup final very shortly. If you're just joining us, Everton's 10-point deduction has been reduced on appeal to 6 points. And, of course, there are other charges that they will be, potentially they could be looking at maybe another 6, as could Forest. Who knows if that's the tariff or not? I suppose it does depend on circumstances. But good news for Evertonians today. We'll get reaction later on. Interested to hear from you, Evertonians. Were you expecting that? Was that your feeling? Did you gird yourself for that 6 points? Will you take that, or do you still think it's unfair? 03717 223344, talksport.com, text 81089, tweet TSH&J.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.